Susanne, welcome to our Stories of Resilience video series. It's good to see you. You're head teacher of Bainsford Primary School in Falkirk in Scotland, and you've got a remarkable story to tell. And when we were talking backstage off camera, quite a brave story to tell. So just for the uninitiated, tell me about what you've adopted at your school since June of last year. You've ripped up what is commonly known in the education sector as behaviour charts and replaced them with something completely different. Tell me more.
Well, after the main service day last year, the staff and I had a look at the work of Paul Dix, which I know a lot of people are familiar with. And Paul speaks about faming children by shaming children. And when we looked at what we did, children were rewarded for good work, good attitude, good walking, and it just didn't sit comfortable with myself and the staff. And we took down the behaviour charts, the points charts, and we put up instead a recognition board where there is a target for the children to work towards, and that might be a target of everyone is listening well, and if the teacher sees them listening well, they get their name up. So the names were going up on the board for the good reasons. What we'd used before was a good to be green system where every child had to be green, and when they got a row, they got a warning card which was yellow and said warning right across it. And then if they did it again, they got a red card which said consequence, and then the child would lose what we would call golden time. So come Friday, when all of the children would get their hours golden time, there would be some children who would be still working because they had lost time. And we didn't think that was beneficial to anybody in the school.
Sorry to interrupt. What changed your thinking?
Well, when I was a young teacher, I had no awareness of this, but people would talk about, children in areas of poverty don't attain. And I thought, why not? Why is that? It can't just be because they're poor, because I didn't come from an affluent family, and yet we all went to college or university. So I knew there had to be another reason why children were not attaining. And fortunately, I came across the work of Nadine Burke-Harris, and her first TED Talk, when she spoke about children with adverse childhood experiences, I thought to myself, that is definitely what I am looking at. I'm looking at children who are coming into school who are already in a state of anxiety, and they do not need me or anyone else adding to their anxiety that they've got. What they need from us is someone to listen to them, to help regulate themselves, and to look at what's happening in their lives, and should tell the children that we're there for them, and that we want to help them as much as we can.
With the recognition board and the scrapping of the behaviour charts, how were they accepted by your staff and, importantly, by parents?
The staff were really up for it. They're also because we've done so much work around adverse childhood experiences. They realised as well, we're not doing these children really any justice at all. They were all very much up for it. We took it to the parent council and explained to them what we were doing and why we were doing it, and they just thought it was absolutely wonderful. They thought it was amazing. They weren't frightened that behaviour was going to change, but what it did give parents was an awareness of that sometimes when we're dealing with a child that would maybe have been seen before as being a naughty child, that actually what we're doing is we know that there's other reasons for the behaviours that we're seeing from that child. So the way that we deal with those behaviours is completely different now. We're not punishing children because they are behaving really badly. We're trying to understand what has happened to them.
You wrote a behaviour policy, I believe, a number of years ago and revisited it recently. Would you be happy to share with the viewer your reaction to when you reread that?
Yes, I opened it up thinking, I wonder what our behaviour policy actually says. And I was absolutely horrified to read words like disruptive children, problematic children, removing children from classes. And I realised then that this was a policy that was so out of touch with the work that the school, we'd moved so far on from it. And I thought, we have to rewrite one, we have to involve our parents in writing the new behaviour policy, we have to involve the children in writing the new behaviour policy. So what we have now is a collaborative relationship policy. I don't even think we call it a policy, it's just
And I think
approach.
it's important to stress that you're not ashamed about what you didn't know.
Absolutely not. I can tell you a story when I was a teacher and moved into an area of significant deprivation, and I was completely unaware of where the children were coming from, and nobody told me what home life was like for these children. And there was I giving this wee boy a hard time for having no homework jotter. And I said to him, you must have a homework jotter. It must be in your house. You just go home and find it. You must be able to find it. Thinking stupidly, naively, that his house will be like my house. And the head teacher at that time said to me, I want you to come with me. And she took me to the wee boy's house, and the mum welcomed us in, and I couldn't find a bed in the house, never mind a homework jotter. I was giving a wee boy grief for a homework jotter when he goes home at night. He's not even got anywhere to sleep. And that was such a hard-hitting time for me that I realised then we have to start treating children that are coming from chaotic households so much differently. And I feel that from there, that I would like to say that we need to go back and look at our teachers who are coming out of university. What do they know about adverse childhood experiences? What do they know about children who have experienced any kind of trauma or live in deep poverty and are coming into school with only the clothes on their back, have had no breakfast, have maybe had no dinner? What do they know about that? And I've been lucky that I've been able to provide training for our probationers in Falkirk. However, I think the universities need to be trauma informed, and this needs to start much, much earlier for teachers entering the profession so that they know about what trauma looks like in children, and that they can move away from the behaviourist model of rewarding children who are good and sit well and are kind to other children.
Tell me about the connection bracelets.
Oh yes, well, a couple of years ago, some of our wee ones coming into primary one were really upset on leaving their parents, and that's quite common at maybe the first couple of days. But when it starts to go on for a few weeks, we realise that something maybe was amiss there. So because we're thinking about relationships and about attachment, and we have been a nurturing school for quite a long time, we were very lucky to have a nurture class within our school. We thought about something that my mum used to do for me was she used to put kisses up my sleeve for after. And so what I thought I could do is get the children a band, and we called them an attachment bracelet. And what the mums do in the morning is they put lots and lots of kisses onto the bracelet, and it says, "You are right here." So when the child's feeling that they're really missing mum, they can look at the wee bracelet with the wee smiley face on it, and then they put it up to their face and they get the kisses from their mum. And then we noticed that it's not just primary one children. Some of our children in primary two were distressed leaving parents, and we would give them one, and they were so cheap to buy and such a simple idea, but very effective.
And I suppose the important question, Susanne, is what about the tangible results that you've seen so far?
Well, if you'd have asked me this time last year about some of the destinations for some of our children, I would have probably said they're not going to be good. However, a year down the line of being a trauma-informed school, being known about adverse childhood experiences, and the work that we've done following the pivotal Paul Dix's work, I can now, with my hand on my heart, say that the children that I will be soon leaving our school are going to have very positive destinations, because they are able to regulate themselves much better, because they've had that modelled to them by staff who are able to regulate their own behaviours, who are not shouting at the children because the children have done anything that they would say is inappropriate. So yeah, I would say.
I've got two questions left for you. What you're talking about makes complete and utter sense to me, and it's new because I grew up. I was at school in the 70s and the 80s, and things were completely different. And we've spoken to many guests about times past. But what can the wider government, because we're talking about Scotland in particular here, but what can the wider government, the UK in particular, south of the border, what can they pick up? What can they learn from the work that you are currently doing? Because there's a debate going on south of the border, which is the polar opposite of what we've been talking about today.
Mm-hmm. I think it's easier to punish children than it is to sit with them, and that takes time, and to talk them through what has happened. I know that down south there's a great debate over these isolation booths that children are being put into as a punishment.
What's your alternative to that, incidentally?
Well, what we have in our school is we have a room that's called the Peace Room, and the children self-refer themselves to the Peace Room. So children who have experienced trauma, or maybe have had a morning leaving their home where mum's maybe been upset, and there's been a lot of shouting in the house, and they've come to school, they're already in a state of anxiety. So what the child would do is, if they feel that in class that they're not managing and they're starting to lose focus, or other children are annoying them because they're looking at them, is they just quietly signal to the teacher what they feel, what level they feel they're at, and the teacher will nod, and the child lifts their work and takes their work to the Peace Room. And the Peace Room has little individual chairs where they can turn it and face the wall if they can't possibly bear to look at anyone else at that moment in time. It's nice, it's a cosy room, it has nice soft seating as well for them, but it doesn't mean it's not just getting out of class and not doing the work. They bring their work with them, but they can just then work till they feel that they can go back into their class, and that has worked really well. And for some of our children, I would say that there's been a massive big difference, because they feel they can get out of the situation that's causing them to feel really anxious.
So from what I hear you saying, it's not necessarily about punishment, it's about kindness.
Yes, it's about being really kind to children, and knowing that we're there to listen to them, and to tell them that we hear you, we understand that you're upset today, but when you're ready you can talk to me about it. But the person that mans the Peace Room, and that can be any member of staff, doesn't speak to the children unless the children want. So we'd maybe just check in with them, are you okay? And if they don't want to speak to us, we just let them be, and then when they're ready to talk, they can talk to us about it.
I took you off track a little bit when we talked about the Peace Room and the isolation booths and so on. So just going back to the debate that's going on south of the border, to wrap that up, what do you think we can transfer over the border in terms of what we're doing here currently to maybe change the thinking, maybe to change the way that they're thinking about policies and moving forward?
I think if they need to know what we know, because when we didn't know, when I didn't know about adverse childhood experiences, I couldn't explain why children in areas of poverty were not attaining the same as children in affluent areas. But once you know about adverse childhood experiences, you can start to change your policies, and that's what we've done. And lots of schools in Falkirk are doing that just now. And I think that's what maybe south of the border need to be looking at. What is it you're doing? Why are you doing that? What made you change to a relationship policy? And once they start to understand about adverse childhood experiences, then I think that will start to inform different policies.
This is my final question, because I did fib to you earlier, didn't I? What does an ACE-aware nation look like for you in terms of Scotland? What does an ACE-aware nation look like?
I think an ACE-aware nation is where all of our children feel safe and secure, and if that's not at home, because home can't provide that, then it's in school. For me, for where I come from, it's in our schools that we give the children that safety and chat about it. But it lets the children are feeling safe, that they know there is somebody that they can talk to.
Susanne McCafferty, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.